Actually, I stole Supergrass's cheese while they were toweling down my girlfriend backstage. I stole the Beta Band's cheese when they were performing. But that's the glory of supporting big acts when you have no money. Anyway, my name is Louis. I'm going to talk about selling out. I just want to warn you that all the slides are actually sort of don't really correspond to what I'm saying. They're just there for you to kind of look at. I've got a big parade of people who have sold out in terms of their rock and roll. So you can either go, ooh, or fair enough. Anyway, I perform under the name Louis Barabbas. I'm a sort of, I have a dirt swing band called the Bedlam Six. It's kind of a mixture of rock and roll and old swing and sort of folk and narrative stuff. And so we tour around, and we tour in Germany, Austria, Switzerland, and Europe and England, and everywhere we can, really. And because we're very, very underground and very sort of alternative, and yet incredibly fun, it's very much about the money. When I'm writing the things, you know, it's very much about sort of pouring out my heart and trying to make sense of the difficulties of life and love and loss and death and all those sort of things. But when it comes to actually being booked for a gig, you've got to pay me, because otherwise it's just not worth it. So I want to talk about selling out a bit, because that's kind of okay, that sort of thing, you know, being paid for your art, that's all right. Recently I played at Eden Festival, I jumped off the stage, and I already hurt my knee. So now that sort of thing, you know, you need to have a cushion when that sort of thing happens. Anyway, we're still very much in the underground, and there isn't much money involved. So I want to sort of address this thing, because selling out is a concept which it sort of persistently sort of stays there, while things like the album, people are sort of thinking, well, albums themselves aren't so relevant anymore because you've got streaming from, you know, clouds and Spotify and that sort of thing. You're looking at sort of MP3s, you can get it for nothing. The product itself is going. So people are fine about that. Well, a lot of people are fine about that. A lot of people aren't fine about that. And yet, where does the new revenue come from when the traditional revenue streams are all sort of phasing out? You've got the labels all crumbling because now they no longer control the means of distribution. So you can have, you know, a band record something in their basement, put it out on the internet, on Bandcamp or whatever. Someone in the United States sees it, gets them over there because they think they're brilliant. They're suddenly an international artist, all these sort of things. All these things, I'm talking from experience, actually. And they're not tarred with that brush of being sort of saddled with, you know, the management and the 5-year deal and the sort of the terrible kind of stranglehold that something like Sony might give you. I have no idea. I've never been on Sony or anything that could possibly give me any sort of real income from record sales. So this sort of found me. So in the middle of the sort of 2000s, suddenly you had a kind of re-evaluation, a rebirth of the punk ethic, I suppose, because you could pretty much do everything yourself. But of course, that's a double-edged sword, really, because you could no longer sell these records anymore. So people will start saying, well, we can sync to an advert or a film or a TV program. And I know a lot of people who've put songs onto things like skins and that sort of stuff. And that sort of seems fine. But what's weird, when you've got this sort of complete DIY ethic, you don't have to worry so much about, you know, the control of a major label. But on the other hand, when people see you put a song onto, I don't know, Walkers or something like that, they'll know that it's you. You know, people are expected now. The band as brand phenomenon is far more sort of widespread now. So that's a real way. Oh, we have Ryan Adams here and Gap. So I don't actually know what order these are in. So I've got no idea when it finishes. I just sort of put them together. This is my first PowerPoint, actually. I hope I'm doing all right. Normally I just sort of wing it, which of course is not what I'm doing right now. So good. Anyway, one of the things I do to kind of supplement my income from performing is to give sort of be on panels at sort of music conventions, that sort of stuff, about sustainability, because I'm a full-time performer. So I sort of give tips to the younglings who are trying to make their way in the world. And one person at an event I was at a couple of weeks ago for Unconvention, which I'm also on the board for, he asked how to get your song in an advert and how to get those royalties and get that sort of the big paycheck. And I said, you got to read tread carefully because you could get like sort of 20 grand from Pampers, but then 5 years later you're still the Pampers band, and by that point you spent all that money and you're no longer sustainable because no one's interested, because you've lost your edge. So I was feeling quite good about that analogy, and then a week later I got an email from an advertising agency asking if they could use my most famous song in an advert, and could they change the lyrics from the verse but keep the really, really good hook. And I went, I'm not sure about that, because I'm kind of, I'm sort of punk and all that sort of stuff, as you could tell. And Oh, Richard there. I saw him in playing in Philadelphia, actually. It's actually very good live, but he's a complete sellout. So anyway, they said, can you do this? And I said, okay, well, what's it for? I was thinking, well, if it's for like Lafroig whiskey, that's all right. That's quite cool. I know it's a product, but I drink that, or I would if I could afford it. If it's for Jaguar, that's quite cool. If it's for Viagra, that won't do me much good at all. It turned out to be for cheese. And I was thinking, see, I like cheese, but it's sort of downhill, isn't it? Like, you've got sort of Lafroig and Jaguar and stuff like that, and you've got Viagra, and then you've got cheese. So I hummed and hawed about it. But I was interested because I'd already considered the whole selling out thing. I realised from just being asked a question, the initial kind of snap answer was, how much and what's it for? And I thought, well, I'm obviously going to be fine with that. That the principle is no longer a factor. It's just about the terms, really, and the product and how well it sort of reflects on me and what's cool. And cool is a very ridiculous thing, and I hope that goes out of fashion too at some point, but I don't know if it will. I hope so, but you can probably see, I hope so, because I'm just not very. But it's okay once you pass 27, because if you're not dead by that point, you're not really rock and roll anyway. So, and I'm 28, so it's all right. That's a massive load off. Well, that's near the end. So there's Blair, British Gas, of course. So yes. Anyway, so I took their money because I need it. Yeah, and I'm going to spend it on all sorts of things, like getting myself out of debt, and then hopefully writing some new songs that I won't say out with. But I want to do the thing like, there I am, there's the cheese. I want to say, Desperate Terms selling out, should that be something consigned to the dustbin of history, or is it still relevant? Well, we have all the sort of social media and all the things where all our artists can talk about how we're watching new printers and all that sort of stuff. If we've lost that mystery, is selling out still a factor? Is it something that's still relevant? You tell me. Anyway, I'm playing the song a bit later on. You can judge if it was a song, the cheese song. But there we go. That's I'm Barabbas, and that's my new tune.